Good afternoon, everyone. We will give folks just a few seconds to join us and we'll jump in with this webinar. Okay, welcome. This is the LASO 3 Instructional Leadership webinar. We'll be detailing the instructional leadership pathway of this grant opportunity. And we'll kick off by introducing who you'll be hearing from today. My name is Lyndon Kish. I serve as the Director of Instructional Leadership Systems here at the TEA. I'll pass it to Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley Privas. I'm the Director of Instructional Leadership Content. Chris?
My name is Chris Vargo. I'm the Director of Instructional Leadership Coaching, and I'll pass it over to Scott.
My name is Scott Taylor. I am the Director of School Improvement Strategy and Support, and I'll pass back to Lyndon.
Thanks, everybody. So here's where we're headed today during this webinar. We're going to start with an overview of the LASO Cycle 3 application process and timeline, broadly what this opportunity is across the state. We'll then go into a deep dive into this particular portion of the LASO 3 opportunity, which is the instructional leadership pathway. Finally, we'll close out with some next steps and where you can find access to further information in addition to what we're sharing today. So you see on the right side of the screen, some very important information. Please, throughout this webinar. Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry. We're not seeing a screen yet.
Oh.
So maybe try that one more time.
Let's try again, everybody. Okay, how about this, Ashley?
There you go. I see
We
it.
can see it.
Great. Sorry about that, everyone. So here's who you're hearing from today once again. Myself, Ashley, Scott, and Chris. And here's where we're headed. So these FYIs on the right side of the screen, very important. Please submit questions using the Zoom Q&A function. We won't be able to take questions out loud, but you can put any questions into the Q&A and we'll make sure each of those gets answered. Also, the slides from this webinar, as well as the recording, will be posted on the LASO Cycle 3 website after all of the webinars have been completed, so you can look forward to referencing that afterwards. And then importantly, please email LASO, L-A-S-O, at tea.texas.gov with any follow-up questions that you have that you don't get to put into the Zoom Q&A. So kicking off with an overview of LASO Cycle 3 and what this grant opportunity entails. The Learning Acceleration and Support Opportunities Cycle 3 is the next iteration of the consolidated grant application that many of you are familiar with, which strategically batches funding opportunities that support learning acceleration and innovation opportunities. So there's $160 million in services and support that will be provided to LEAs across the state. This will include access to 11 TEA initiatives that support learning acceleration and innovation, and it's all wrapped up in one LEA program application where you all can access this funding. This is a grant application that's consolidated to support key learning acceleration strategies, and you can see what those are here on the right side of the screen. Curriculum and instruction centered on rigorous, high-quality instructional materials that are designed to make up ground and master grade level TEKS faster. More time for students who are in most need, including expanding instructional time in the summer and with targeted tutoring supports. And then lastly, innovative school models that are meant to incorporate all of the learning acceleration framework. But what are we talking about today? It's just this component of LASO Cycle 3 opportunity, which is instructional leadership. And why instructional leadership? Our team is committed to just this part of what makes schools great and what drives student outcomes in campuses across the entire state of Texas. The motivation for this work comes from what we know about student outcomes that have been achieved thus far. Currently, only 50% of grade 3 through 8 students in Texas are reading on grade level. You can see here that did not meet the approaches, the meets, and the master's percentages from the most recent STAR examination this past spring. And you can see that we really have a critical impetus here to change things in schools. And we believe that that starts at the instructional leadership level with building sustainable, systemic practices at every level in order to give teachers what they need to be effective in the classroom. We see similar data in math. that you can see that did not meet the approaches and the meets and masters levels are not where they need to be. And they, in fact, have not recovered to where students were performing pre-pandemic. Based on the 2019 data. So really, the call for instructional leadership systems has never been higher. The need for teachers to have support from their campus leaders and from their district leaders has never been higher. We know that teachers have the biggest impact on the numbers that we see here. And in order for them to be their most effective in the classroom, they have to have leaders who are prioritizing their time in the most effective way. And research has shown that the coaching of teachers to improve their practice is one of the most high leverage ways to do that. So Chris is going to talk in a little bit about why exactly instructional leadership is designed to address systems that support teachers. But before we get into that, let's hear from our next presenter.
Thanks, Lyndon. So as Lyndon was saying, the purpose of this grant is really to support teachers, leaders, and district administrators in continuous improvement of their classroom instruction through instructional leadership systems. So this will provide training, implementation support, and one-on-one coaching to both campus and district leaders. Campuses that are eligible to apply for this grant are Title I served campuses with 2024 federal identifications, comprehensive identified, comprehensive re-identified, comprehensive progress, targeted support, or additional targeted support campuses. In the application, you should be able to see whether or not you are eligible from our drop-down list. And this grant is best fit for LEAs who are looking for technical assistance to develop school-wide culture routines that preserve instructional time, collaborative planning structures, and establishing systems for short cycle coaching for teachers and leaders, and processes to establish lesson level data analysis systems that can then inform future instruction. Thanks, Lyndon. Some of the commitments that we require from LEAs who are awarded this grant is that you will be required to assign a campus intervention team. You will need the principal manager that works with your campus to be involved in the trainings and in the coaching and in the implementation support. You will need to adhere to the training scope and sequence of whatever state-approved provider you choose upon being awarded the grant, and you will need to ensure that you have PLC time built into your master schedule to allow for teachers and leaders to engage in the type of planning and data analysis that continuous improvement with instructional leadership requires. You can see there on the slide, you can see there on the slide just some estimates of time required from different roles. So for principals and principal managers, you should plan to spend about 4 to 6 hours weekly on campus walkthroughs, observing instruction, giving feedback to teachers on instruction, as well as overseeing other elements of implementation of the instructional leadership program. And then to spend 1 to 2 days monthly on further implementation support, but including but not limited to training for teachers. This is just a matrix that compares some of the other programs that are eligible for, or that are options in this grant. So you can see that second column there after the LEA staff is the instructional leadership column. So depending on which state-approved provider you choose, the time necessary for the professional learning sessions will be variable. As we'll see later on in the webinar, there are a few different options. Some include product support for non-OER HQIM. Some do not include product support, and some are limited to observation feedback, data-driven instruction, and school-wide culture routines, and don't include materials work at all. So it really is variable depending on the pathway that you choose as well as the provider that you choose. But everyone should plan on spending several hours per week in observation, in coaching teachers, and in facilitating or observing PLCs, where teachers are internalizing lessons and or analyzing student work to determine how instruction needs to shift moving forward. And then at the district level, those folks should plan to participate in at least 1 day per month, implementation support and one-on-one coaching with a coach from their state-approved provider, as well as a variable amount of time depending on their caseload or number of campuses that they oversee, participating in implementation support and observation of campuses. So these assurances are also important that campuses that apply for this grant can make sure that they can adhere to these assurances. That first bullet is especially important because you need to draw down approximately 20% of the grant amount quarterly to ensure that you retain your eligibility for the continuation grant. So this is a 2-year grant, and in order to qualify to receive funding for the second year, you need to show that you have drawn down 20% of the grant quarterly for that first year. You also need to commit to spending at least 70% of the grant amount on your state-approved provider, and that at least one campus and district leader per campus stays engaged in the training, the implementation support, and the coaching process, as well as submitting all required grant deliverables, which may include artifacts from coaching or artifacts from that implementation support or other evidence of fidelity of implementation. So now we're going to overview the program. So these are just some of the other pathways within the LASO grant. This one in the upper quadrant, the non-OER instructional leadership support, is what we're talking about today. So if you adopt high quality instructional materials that are non-OER instructional materials, you can apply for support from the Instructional Leadership Grant, as well as one of the pathways that is for folks who already have a product that they feel strong about, and they're just looking for support in establishing those instructional leadership systems for observation and feedback, data-driven instruction, or observation, feedback, data-driven instruction, and school-wide culture routines. So you can see there the different pathways. If you are an LEA that is looking to adopt OER, your pathway is going to be on that top where you'll engage in strong foundations. This webinar is about the instructional leadership pathway, which are those 3 different pathways on the bottom. As I mentioned earlier, you can get a total instructional leadership package, which includes support for school-wide culture routines, materials, internalization, and alignment, observation and feedback systems, and data-driven instruction systems, and support for adopting your new product. You can get the total instructional leadership package, which includes those 4 areas I mentioned of school-wide culture routines, materials, internalization and alignment, observation and feedback, and data-driven instruction without product support. Or if you already have a product and you're not looking for support for internalization for your teachers, you can engage in the instructional leadership pathway that is observation and feedback, data-driven instruction, or observation and feedback, data-driven instruction with a school-wide culture routines add-on. You can see there that you are able to apply for this pathway even if you have previously been awarded a School Action Fund grant, but that may include additional interviews to determine best fit and to ensure that resources are being distributed equitably. Thank you. So you can see there the best fit guidance. Again, if you are adopting a non-OER high quality instructional material and looking for support for establishing those foundational instructional leadership systems for either internalization, observation and feedback, data-driven instruction, or school-wide culture routines to preserve that instructional time, the IL pathway would be the best fit for you. Or if you are not adopting a product at all and just looking to establish some of those instructional leadership systems, this could be a good pathway for you. And then, as I mentioned, if you are awarded a School Action Fund grant and you apply for the Instructional Leadership grant, we may need to conduct further interviews to determine the best fit for you. So here are just some examples for how this could align with your goals. If you are adopting a non-OER high-quality instructional material, but you want instructional leadership supports, you can apply to this pathway. This pathway, the instructional leadership pathway, does not provide support for folks or LEAs who are adopting an OER product or Texas Bluebonnet Learning. So those, if that applies to you, your best fit is going to be the Strong Foundations Implementation Grant. But this grant is best fit if you are looking to establish instructional leadership infrastructure and enabling systems to ensure that continuous improvement and strong instructional leadership is just part of how you do business at your LEA. Or if you're looking for technical assistance to develop in any of those 4 areas, all 4 of those areas of school-wide culture routines, observation and feedback, data-driven instruction, and materials internalization. This grant includes ongoing job-embedded professional development and instructional leadership capacity building through those face-to-face professional development learning sessions, implementation support, which will look like a coach coming to your LEA, walking campuses with you, reviewing artifacts that are evidence of implementation, and then receiving one-on-one coaching at the district and campus level to ensure strong implementation of the practices outlined in those trainings. And it also provides extra support for those federally identified campuses. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Scott to talk through the funding, eligibility, and prioritization for this grant.
Thank you, Ashley. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start off here just by giving a quick overview of the Instructional Leadership grant. So total funding available, $41 million. These are all Title I funds that will affect eligibility, which we'll get into in just a bit. Estimated range of award is between $50,000 and $215,000. And this is the total award for the LEA. We're going to break down, you're probably thinking, wow, that's a really big difference between getting 50,000 for my LEA and getting 215. We're going to break that down in the next few slides. We're estimating at around 200 LEAs will be getting an award, and then the timeline is going to be implementing this starting in the school year 25-26 and continuing 26-27. Okay, so Ashley started talking about the packages available to y'all through the instructional leadership pathway. The first one is going to be complete instructional leadership package, and that's all 4 of those pieces that Ashley has been naming, plus support for the SBOE approved product. So this is going to be the largest grant that we offer, or the largest package through this grant that we offer, because it is everything, the total instructional leadership package and extra funds for product support. So this is going to start with a base of $115,000. And this is for at least one campus engaging with the LEA for these practices. For each additional LEA that is awarded, it could be up to $25,000. So the max amount of awards is 4 additional campuses for a total award. That should say $215,000. Let me run through some examples because that can be a little bit confusing. So the first example, I'm at an LEA, only one campus is going to apply to work in this grant. Your award would be $115 if awarded. Second case scenario, 5 campuses. So the one that is included in the base package, plus the max amount of 4 more awarded campuses with the $25,000. So that comes to a grand total of $215 over the course of those 2 years of the grant. This is where it gets a little confusing. If I want 7 campuses to engage, That's possible, but the max amount of funding is going to be cut off at 4 additional campuses. So that total would still be $215,000, but you are still engaging in practices with those other campuses. So you can engage with 7 campuses. However, the total amount of funding will not exceed $215,000.
One note here on the funding is you will see incorporated into the total amounts $20,000 for that SBOE approved product support. So that would be coming directly from the publishers of those products, and it's $20,000 awarded for the support that would take place over the 2 years of the grant. So the $25,000 per campus for up to 4 additional campuses, 100,000 plus the base award of 95,000 gets you to 195, and then that 20K additional is for the product support, which is included in this first option that Scott's sharing.
Thank you for that clarification, Lyndon. And something I wanted to highlight here that Ashley spoke of earlier is that this grant is going to be in 2 parts. So you will be receiving 2 NOGAs with this grant. The first one it will be coming through LASO 3. Then there will be a continuation grant, which brought us back to that assurance that Ashley was saying of drawing down 20% quarterly to ensure that you are able to receive the continuation grant. Next slide, please. Oh, you did it. Sorry, it's just so similar. I didn't notice. The next grant or the next pathway is for a complete instructional leadership package. So this is everything, all 4 of those pieces from before, just without the specific SBOE approved product support. So what you'll notice is that that 20,000 that Lyndon highlighted is pulled back. So the total amount that you could receive here is 195. The same stipulations apply to every single pathway here. So you're going to have the base package per LEA with 1 campus plus X amount of additional per campus. And that amount is maxed out at 4 additional campuses, but that does not cap the number of campuses that can engage. And you can see the scenarios below are similar to the ones in the previous slide. With 1 campus, you would receive 95,000 over the course of 2 years. And then if you have up to 5 campuses, so the 1 included in the base plus the 4 additional, that would get you to 195,000. If you wanted to include more campuses and really spread out the engagement over your LEA, you can do that, but the max amount remains at 195. For the next pathway, this is the observation, feedback, and data-driven instruction with the school-wide culture routines add-on. So when inside the grant, it actually looks like there's 4 pathways, and that's because we've included 1 pathway with this add-on. So we put it in here as well. So this would be 75,000 for the first campus, and then 12,500 per additional campus. Again, there's no cap on the number of campuses that can engage if awarded, but the max does tap out at 4 additional campuses. The total amount for this grant topping out at $125,000. And finally, the last pathway is observation and feedback and data-driven instruction without any add-on and without SBOE product. So this would be $50,000 for 1 campus at the LEA engaging. For each additional campus, there would be an award of $12,500 for a grand total of $100,000.
We'll correct this when we share the deck, but the examples down at the bottom, you see that still that $25,000 number per additional campus. The number up at the top, the 12,500, is the accurate number for these packages that are not the complete instructional leadership package. So for the ops feedback plus DDI and SCR, it is the $12,500 per additional campus that you see up there at the top.
Thank you for that catch, Lyndon. All right. On to eligibility. So we've said a few times, in order to be eligible for these grants, you must be Title I serving campus with 2024 federal identification. And that includes comprehensive identified, comprehensive re-identified, comprehensive progress, targeted support, and additional targeted support. So any of those federal labels in the 2024 accountability ratings. Campuses are ineligible to apply at the campus level for these grants if they've received an ESF Focus Support Grant 24-26, so the most recent Effective Schools Framework Focus Support Grant. That doesn't mean that the LEA can't apply, just that campus specifically cannot be brought into this package. An LEA is eligible to apply for both SFI and instructional leadership grants. So if you are not sure, if you're still kind of mulling over if you want to adopt OER or you do not want to adopt OER, it's possible that you could apply for both of these grants. However, if awarded both, the LEA must select their ESC as their provider for both the SFI and instructional leadership. Also, SFI programming will be limited to support of OER implementation, and instructional leadership programming will be limited to non-OER support. Lastly is the prioritization and awarding. So this is our priority tier list. Essentially, we will award everyone in tier 1, and then we would move on to tier 2, award all of those as money allows. So the first priority tier, so it would be every campus that is CSI, then it would be rated within that tier, top to bottom, based on overall star scores for that campus. So the lowest star scores would be at the top, and then it would go down from there. Once we've awarded every single CSI campus, then we would move on to priority tier 2, and we would do the same thing. Additional targeted support with the lowest overall star scores by campus, and then award similarly. Okay, I believe I am now passing over to Chris.
All right, everyone. I'm excited. I'm going to talk a little bit about the purpose of the IL program and talk a little bit about its content, approved providers, and then walk through some key points related to the application for the instructional leadership pathways themselves. And so first off, the purpose of the instructional leadership program and leadership pathways is to provide training, implementation support, and one-on-one coaching to campus and district leaders to build their own capacity and that of the educators they manage. And so what's really important to highlight in that first sentence is that this isn't just a set of trainings that happen over the summer. After the initial trainings on those instructional leadership systems, there are cycles of implementation support as well as coaching to ensure that that leaders are building new skill sets and implementing those as they implement their IL systems. Next, approved providers include all 20 education service centers as well as vetted vendors with a history of strong results working with campuses and districts in Texas. In a moment, I have a slide where I can talk about who those approved providers are. But no, we've reviewed all of these vendors and they do have a track record of success, and their content does align to all of the components of instructional leadership, which are outlined in this next sentence. So instructional leadership set of pathways consists of a required suite of trainings and support intended to foster continuous improvement by helping campus and district administrators grow concrete instructional leadership skills in the area of school-wide culture routines, high-quality instructional materials, internalization and implementation, observation feedback, and data-driven instruction. And so the program here is intentionally designed not just to implement these 4 systems, but to think about them in an integrated way and how they would work together to improve instruction and improve student learning. All right, so I mentioned before I would talk about the state approved provider list. And so first, a couple of follow-ups from the grant front is as you choose your provider, 70% of grant funds must be used to contract with an approved provider from this list in this middle column from the LASO 3 approved instructional leadership provider list. 30% of the grant funds may fund other allowable expenses. That includes print materials, digital licenses, teacher stipends, instructional coaches, as well as further contracting with your LASO Cycle 3 approved provider for federally identified campuses and Title I serving campuses that were not awarded a LASO grant. So that's a specific piece there. Those campuses, the 30% of grant funds can be used to support that group of campuses in particular. For the complete instructional leadership package with product support, Scott outlined earlier how there's additional funding awarded to support product-specific trainings. Thinking about, though, the providers of the complete instructional leadership package itself, or the observation feedback school-wide culture data-driven instruction package. Here in this middle column, you can see our list of current providers where we have all 20 of our ESCs through the Texas Instructional Leadership Program. Some of our other providers include Big Rock Educational Services, E3 Alliance, Engage to Learn, Insight Education Group, Instruction Partners, EdDirection, National Institute for Excellence in Teaching, Relay Graduate School of Education, the Achievement Network, TK Ed Consulting, as well as the New Teacher Project. The state-approved provider list provides details and contact information for each approved provider, and the state-approved provider list website provides additional context and links to the provider information. So if you have any questions or concerns about that website or the list, you can reach out to sapl at tea.texas.gov. And so wanted to spend a few moments just going a bit deeper into the application and highlighting some key points we thought were important. So when you're in the instructional leadership application through Qualtrics, first, when you select your district, it'll automatically populate a drop-down menu that includes your eligible campuses. So this is how you'll identify the campuses you're applying for. You have to type a letter in first, so you must begin by typing the name of the campus, and then it'll pull up eligible campuses beginning with that letter. If you cannot find a campus that you believe should be eligible, we've included an opportunity to enter the name and CDCN number of that campus on a following question. So for some reason you're typing in that campus, it's not popping up, you have the opportunity to manually put that in soon after that. So here's an important one. Unlike T-Class, LASO will require a superintendent's signature in order to complete and formally submit the application. So if your LEA is facing any unique circumstances with that requirement and requires an accommodation, you can reach out to the LASO inbox at laso@tea.texas.gov. All right, a few other key points I want to highlight. Please read carefully all the program assurances, including the instructional leadership pathway specific ones. The instructional leadership pathway supports systemic change, so a commitment to building instructional leadership systems is required. So we worked hard to detail in the application what will be asked and required of the LEA. And so, talked about some time commitments as well as the types of systems that would be implemented as a part of this program. So please consider and evaluate if instructional leadership is a good fit for your district as you apply. Just thinking about the commitments and the eagerness to receive coaching around those systems that would be needed. All right. And there'll also be upcoming opportunities to engage in the application with more detail with the TEA. So wanted to highlight that's the case. And if you have questions while completing the application, all information is going to be included in the LASO 3 webpage. And we just want to highlight one more time that inbox, laso@tea.texas.gov, for any questions as you're completing the application. All right. And I'm going to pass it back over to Scott.
All right, y'all. So the last section we have here is the path forward. So what is the timeline for LASO? When are things due? So you're here. We are mid-October. The TEA application has opened just 3 days ago. We will be publishing the FAQ in mid-November, and that FAQ will be populated by the questions that y'all are putting into the Q&A right now. After that, the LASO application closes on December 13th at 5 p.m. So please be sure to make sure that your applications are in by then. By late January, we will begin the scoring process and any interviews that may need to occur. Finally, on February 20th, this is a tentative date, we are hoping to announce all of the awards with a NOGA date by the end of May. All right. So how you might be thinking, how are the superintendents going to get this application? So the superintendents will get a unique application link sent right to their email box. They got it on October 14th. This, the communication information to the superintendent was pulled from Ask Ted. If you're looking for it, you can't find it, there's a request for application link form where you can get a new link sent in. Similarly, if you have any questions, any issues, there's a lot of information on the LASO 3 website. Additionally, in order to submit your application, superintendents will need to sign off on it. Change requests and declines. So LASO is anchored in informal, discretionary, competitive grant process. So what that means is that declines and change requests are not advisable, typically in a competitive grant process, because if you are awarded and then we have to decline, then we're not awarding someone else who could have used that money. So this isn't advised. Like Chris was saying, like really think through if this is the right path for you prior to your application. If declines are requested, it will be considered on a case-by-case basis. If you have questions, there will be an office hours from 11 to 12, November 6th. The FAQ will be posted November 13th. You can also send questions in by email to laso@tea.texas.gov. And for any questions about the Instructional Leadership Grant, you can also contact the SI division at tea.texas.gov. All right, y'all. This is just a quick, another kind of timeline look at this. The application window is open until December 13th. Program webinars are occurring now and ongoing. So today is the first day of those webinars. So if you are interested in other grants, please check out those webinars. You can find those webinar links at the link, the LASO 3 website. And ongoing during this process for school improvement campuses is going to be the superintendent consultations. So if you're an LEA interested in these grants, please be sure to talk to your school improvement specialist about these grants during that superintendent consultancy. Next steps are going to be to visit that LASO 3 website, familiarize yourself with these grants. The grant guidelines are posted there. So if you really want to dig in and see what these grants are all about, communicate any decision making, and then register for upcoming informational webinars. So there are more to come. And resources you can find on the right column. This is the end of our webinar. I'm going to give about 2 more minutes before I close out for you to update any other final questions you may have into the chat so we can populate them into our FAQ. So I'm going to give you all about 2 minutes. And I'll reiterate that we won't be answering questions live. So if you don't have any questions, feel free to hop off and check the link for the FAQ when we send it out. About 1 minute remaining. We will close the Zoom at 12:40. It is 12:40. Thank you so much for your questions and your time. We appreciate it and hope to get information out to y'all soon.